you're like me, you spent a lot of time as a kid watching classic Disney cartoons on VHS tapes. Thanks to Eisner's decision to start the home movie branch of the Disney Corporation, I had access to great animated treasures from 1999's Tarzan to 1937's Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. When Pixar came to life, they had a strong 10 years where they released nothing but gems from Cars to Finding Nemo. I loved these cartoons, from the stories they told to the jaw-dropping animation and art, which we will explore in depth in this video with the multiplane camera and special effects it could produce. These were the greatest cartoons ever made. But then something happened. Either I grew up, or the studio stopped making good cartoons. While it's true that I am no longer entertained by the countless made-for-kids Disney sequels, I am still enthralled every time I watch a legitimately good family cartoon. Why did all these box office studios suddenly forget how to tell a good story? And why did the art get so bland and corporate? Tonight on Theme Park Forge, we will talk about one invention that made the greats so good: the multiplane camera. And like the holy grail of Arthurian legend, our quest to understand and reinvent the multiplane camera will face many hardships and hurdles until we reveal its secrets, its beauty, and its application in making great masterwork animation and films that have defined our childhoods and changed art forever. So buckle up for Theme Park Forge. The multiplane camera built the Disney brand. Cartoons were raised from gags and silly symphonies to realist, award-winning art. The multiplane camera used a simple special effect to make a picture feel three-dimensional. Animators would paint each individual pane of glass in a scene before cutting the layer out, assembling each one vertically on a rack. The camera, pointed straight down, would dive into the cutouts one by one, creating the illusion of depth and space in a scene.
Now note that our character is capable of giving us a real feeling of three dimensions. He can move farther away and come closer. When he leaves, whatever dimension he has given the scene leaves with him. Now, the unnatural flatness of the background becomes evident. But besides being merely unrealistic, the old-fashioned flat background can also create a false effect. For instance, when our camera moves in closer on this moonlight scene, you'll notice that everything grows larger, including the moon. Now, when you walk along a country road toward the moon, it certainly doesn't grow larger like this, nor does it shrink in size when you walk away from it. The problem was how to take a painting and make it behave like a real piece of scenery under the camera. The trouble was we were photographing a flat two-dimensional background. So we set about making plans and blueprints for a new cartoon camera that would overcome this. The different elements in the scene were separated according to their varying distances from the viewer. This put the moon on a plane farthest away from the camera. With our original picture broken down in this manner, it is possible to control the relative speed with which each individual part of it moves to or away from the camera. But the moon remains absolutely still, and so it will always remain the same, neither growing nor shrinking in size. Of course, our cartoon camera does not shoot sideways, but is placed above and shoots downward toward the drawing. Since this new camera used many planes, we called it the multiplane camera.
Its development allowed animators and storymen to break the thin paper membrane holding the audience outside as it panned into a scene, past the trees and mountains, past the window of the house and right into the character's life. It was a simple trick with serious implications. Now audiences could enter the world of cartoons. The Little Mermaid was the final Disney film to use the traditional multiplane camera. Like many of the old animation techniques, use of the multiplane camera slowly faded away. In today's manic world full of cheaply made cartoons and worn-out old IPs, it would be so refreshing to see a beautiful, old-world cartoon with a strong story and gorgeous drawings. While I may not be a seasoned artist or animator, I'm enthusiastic about exploring ways to capture that same sense, that same special essence, and incorporate it into contemporary projects. While building a full-scale model of the Multiplane camera is far beyond my budget and skill set, my goal in this video is to pay homage to its invention by utilizing the principles to enhance the visual appeal and depth of today's artwork and animations by using Blender, DaVinci Resolve, and building a smaller version of Disney's Multiplane camera that can be shot with a phone. Your support and feedback will be instrumental as I experiment and learn along the way. Comment below anything that you think could be done better, or if you have any other projects similar that you've done in the past. Join me as I resurrect this old technique of animation, what it is, how to do it myself, and if you like this channel, subscribe and like this video. When I first started research on this project, I was surprised to find out that Disney did not invent the Multiplane camera. In fact, its invention is a story of intrigue, betrayal, and unrecognized genius. Multiplane camera, a groundbreaking technology that added depth and dimension to animated films, had a tumultuous origin that involved rival studios, secretive collaborations, and a race to achieve the perfect cinematic experience. This revelation helped me to appreciate Disney's legacy more and highlighted the interconnected nature of innovation and the relentless pursuit of artistic advancement. 2 years prior to the debut of Mickey Mouse, a woman in Germany was just beginning her film career. Charlotte Lotte Reiniger was born in the city of Berlin in the year 1899, making her 2 years older than Walt Disney. As a child, she loved puppetry and loved theaters, which inspired her to learn paper cutting design. She would take a set of small sharp scissors and cut out the most intricate patterns and shapes imaginable. She learned the German art of silhouette, where you would cut out characters from a piece of paper and use them as puppets, the Germans having adopted the idea from Chinese silhouette puppetry. Lotte was so enamored with puppets and stagecraft that she as a child actually built her own theater to host her own productions. She would go on to have an illustrious career in the cream of German art society. Throughout her life, she beat Disney to the punch on several occasions as she made puppets for classic Grimm fairy tales such as The Pied Piper and Cinderella. In 1926, 2 years before Mickey was born, let me remind you, Lotte collaborated on a film called The 1001 Nights. Lotte and her colleagues pioneered a new special effect that would give depth to their film. Using a camera with a manual shutter, they layered painted panes of glass in front of it to create an illusion of depth as the camera shot. It was the first iteration of the Multiplane camera. Lotte had helped in the invention of the Multiplane camera a full 7 years before Disney. Additionally, 1001 Nights was the first full-length animated film, making Snow White and the Seven Dwarves late to the game by a full 11 years. As a side note, Lotte eventually fled Germany and became a refugee during the Second World War. Before working on this video, I had thought that Disney was the first to debut this technology, but I was wrong. I was also wrong when I thought that Snow White was the first full-length animated film. Could say I was shocked by learning that, but I'm not actually that surprised. Developments in technology are rarely the result of one pioneering genius with a revolutionary idea. Rather, it is the work of many people spanning many countries, each contributing to the technology one idea at a time. Iwerks was Walt's very close friend, since even before there was a studio. He was one of the unsung heroes of Disney and was known for his technical skills, his ability to come up with innovative solutions for animation challenges. Walt often accredited him for being the better animator, and was almost solely responsible for the animation in most of the original cartoons, such as Steamboat Willie, The Skeleton Dance, and The Haunted House. Iwerks and Walt Disney had a close and complex relationship that was characterized by collaboration, creativity, and occasional challenges. One of these challenges exploded into the lives of these two men in January of 1930 when a young boy approached Walt Disney with a pencil and paper in his hands and innocently asked Disney to draw him a little picture of Mickey Mouse. Walt knew that Ub was the better animator and that Mickey Mouse was partially his creation too, so he turned to Ub and said, "Draw it." It was the last straw. Ub worked tirelessly as chief animator at the studio. Every cartoon at that point had more of Ub's fingerprints on it than any other person in the studio. He was often undercredited and overworked. Ub was tired of being told what to do by Walt all the time. He wanted to create his own characters and have creative control. It was time he stepped out on his own to start the Iwerks Animation Studio. Their rivalry lasted 10 years as Walt's once close friend became competition at the theaters. The loss of Ub's talent was a major blow to Disney, both in the eyes of business partners and audiences. Beyond animation, Ub was a great inventor who made the grueling animation process easier and could wow audiences with new technology. Ub was a maverick when it came to inventing new ways of doing things at the studio. He invented the Xerox process using a Xerox machine to reproduce hand-drawn cells. He also pioneered mixed live-action/cartoon films that made classics such as Mary Poppins possible. There had been past experiments with building layers in animation. Whether Ub and Walt knew about all these advancements, such as those made by Lotte Reiniger, is unclear. But what is clear is Ub Iwerks was the first to take advantage of this technology years before anyone else in Walt's circle of animators or creators. Using rescued parts from a Chevrolet automobile, Ub built the first prototype multiplane camera, just 3 years after leaving Disney. Walt was always a dreamer. He was ambitious. He was a perfectionist. Yet he was also extremely loyal. He wanted to do great things and expected a lot from the people he worked with. Yet Walt's life is a story of conflict, from working with employees to working with his own brother Roy. Walt's relationship with Ub was no exception. Disney's mission to transform cartoons into art would go on without Ub Iwerks. Walt knew that he could not let rival studios surpass Disney technologically. When Ub and others began realizing new and exciting innovations, Walt needed a new solution to keep his technological advantage. A new hire, William Garrity, came to work at Disney in 1929, around the same time Ub left the company. He studied electrical engineering in college and became a leading expert in sound and film technology. He was just the guy Walt needed to realize their own version of the multiplane camera. Both Disney and Garrity knew, for this camera to matter, it had to be better than anything else at the time, including Iwerks' camera. They built and patented the best and most famous multiplane camera in history. Disney's camera often required crews of up to a dozen technicians to operate. It could accommodate up to 7 layers of artwork at a time. Depending on the required shot, 2 cameras could be used, one on the vertical axis and one on the horizontal. Animated scenes often filled up entire production sets for the filming process, and a slew of new releases followed. The camera's first test was on a film called The Old Mill, which won an Academy Award in 1937. That film was really meant as an experiment to see what the camera could do before starting on one of the most historic films ever made, Snow White and the Seven Dwarves. Through this technology and others, Disney brought to life unforgettable classics such as Pinocchio, Fantasia, Bambi, The Adventures of Ichabod and Mr. Toad, Cinderella, Alice in Wonderland, Peter Pan, Sleeping Beauty, and The Jungle Book, which all used the multiplane camera to capture the best animated and most cinematic seconds in each of these films. Disney is known by this technique. Meanwhile, Ub struggled to keep his studio afloat, and Iwerks' studio was never a huge commercial success and could not keep up with the competition provided by established studios with larger distributions like Disney or Warner Bros. In addition, it was the height of the Great Depression, and investors often didn't understand the entertainment business and what Ub needed to succeed. Despite the challenges of running his own studio, Ub learned a lot and got to work on many great projects, and even worked with Chuck Jones in the pre-Looney Tunes era. The years leading up to 1940, Ub realized that running his own studio was not something he cared about. His true passion was inventing new special effects for movies and animation. The business part could be ran by someone else for all he cared. In the end, Walt and Ub reconciled their differences. They both learned valuable lessons while they were apart. Disney learned that he needed to recognize the artists and give them more creative license while asking for their best work in a constructive way. And Ub learned that running a business was hard work and required a lot of lonely nights and stressful days spent managing people and making business decisions that could potentially sink the studio. The 20th century was the heyday of the multiplane camera, as other studios sprung up and began to imitate Disney's films and technology. So many beautiful films have benefited from this tech. I was born in the late 90s and got to benefit from my grandma's huge library of VHS tapes. I remember the era of Pixar when it was still led by Steve Jobs, the business genius with good taste, John Lasseter, the artist who knew how to tell a strong story, and Ed Catmull, the tech whiz and father of computer animation. Those were interesting times for animation, as I am glad I got to be a kid and enjoy Disney's Renaissance-era films as well as the new style of Pixar. The storytelling was excellent, as was the art on these films. Computer technologies changed the multi-layer camera completely. No longer did you need a room full of technicians to get a single shot. All you needed was one guy, a computer, and a desk. Digital layering removed the need to build a tower full of animation cells, as an animator could move each layer wherever they wanted in an artificial world and receive real-time feedback to see if the shot worked. Camera movements became omnidirectional, as a simulated camera can sit wherever in the three-dimensional space an artist needs it to. Technology cuts costs significantly and quickly resurfaced the world of animation. The multiplane camera was made obsolete. Nowadays, there are only 3 original multiplane cameras left in existence. One is at the Walt Disney Burbank Studios, the second is at the Walt Disney Family Museum in San Francisco, and the third is at the Art of Animation exhibit at Walt Disney Studios Parks and Disneyland Paris. The digital multiplane camera was able to get far more complicated shots in less time and with less money and effort. You can see the digital multiplane camera at work in such Disney films as Beauty and the Beast, as early as 1991. The ballroom scene in Beauty and the Beast shows the 2 characters waltzing across the floor as the camera follows them through the fully animated scene, something that would have been impossible to do before digital technologies. 1992's Aladdin saw the bustling city of Agrabah featuring layered elements in its marketplaces and streets, enhancing the sense of the vibrant and lived-in world. The African savanna in The Lion King captures a sense of vastness and depth through its layered landscapes and camera movements. Pixar revolutionized the technology again in such films as Finding Nemo to create its vast underwater universe. Needless to say, since the invention of computer animation, most films have incorporated digital multiplane camera effects, whether we realize it or not. It has just gotten so easy to move a camera through an animated world that movie studios and audiences alike have forgotten how miraculous a technology that really is and how far we have come. I both hate and love complaining about modern movies. I think it's interesting to pull them apart and see why they have succeeded or failed. But I am also sad that movies with great story potential are mistreated and poorly animated or filmed. Art is one aspect to a great movie. Nowadays, it feels like animators just work from a huge library of 3D props and don't make any effort to present the animated film in a new way. In the 2000s, such films as Tarzan had a vastly different aesthetic feel than even close contemporaries like Treasure Planet or The Emperor's New Groove. These days, all the cartoons look the same. The cartoons these days look like they came out of a can. There are many factors to why I think Disney is suffering creatively, from poor storytelling to cheap mass-produced art to a severe disconnection with their audience and beyond. But Theme Park Forge is a channel about theme parks, storytelling, Imagineering, and animation. On this channel, we don't just review what Walt Disney did in the past, we don't just criticize what Disney is doing now. On this channel, we are the difference we want to see in the world. We build and we create, we innovate. The mission of Theme Park Forge is to investigate what makes for great family entertainment. From incredible storytelling to great animated movies to world-changing Imagineering and theme parks. Tonight on Theme Park Forge, we went on a quest to understand the multiplane camera, where it came from, and how it's still used today in digital and 3D animation. But what about the future? Walt's old multiplane camera changed the way animators thought about cartoons. That change would eventually lead to 3D animation and virtual reality. Now more than ever before, audiences can enter cartoons and artificial worlds in ways that Walt could only dream of. But there is still a nostalgia and a certain charm about the old way of doing things. The old multiplane camera is still an incredible feat of engineering and imagination. I would personally love to see a new Disney movie that went back to Disney's roots as a traditional 2D animation company. Why did they abandon traditional animation? If they were to make a new cartoon, what story could they tell? How could they reuse the multiplane camera to tell that story? If you could make a new Disney princess story and have it animated in the old school way, what would it be? I'd love to see your guys' thoughts, so comment below. I want to bring back old school animation. At the end of this video, I promised that I would rebuild Walt's multiplane camera. I decided that process deserved its own video. You can find that video on my channel or at the end of this video. I built it using stuff I bought at the thrift store. I took Van Gogh's Starry Night and applied the multiplane camera effect to it. I also rebuilt the digital multiplane camera in Blender so that you can see how it would look like if it was a 90s Disney cartoon or a Pixar short. Definitely check it out. Theme Park Forge is for dreamers. What are your dreams? Have you ever wanted to make a cartoon or build a theme park? Have you ever wanted to go to outer space or be the first to explore a new world? Have you ever wanted to write a best-selling novel? Have you ever wanted to run a 5-star restaurant? Have you ever wanted to code your own game? Have you ever wanted to release your own invention? Theme Park Forge is about making those dreams come true. It's about learning to overcome the roadblocks that stand between us and our goals. It's about family and appreciating the efforts of those who have gone before. If you are a dreamer, Theme Park Forge is for you. By working together, we can build amazing things and amazing worlds. If that sounds good to you, subscribe to our channel and give this video a thumbs up, because the best is yet to come. Please keep your arms, hands, and legs inside the vehicle until it comes to a complete stop. Thanks for watching Theme Park Forge, and please come again soon.